Thank you to all of my subscribers, because as of today I crossed the 3,000 mark and it just makes me so happy. And so to all of you who have been with me since the beginning, my thanks and my appreciation to your support. And to all the new subscribers, I hope you enjoy this channel and all that I'm going to be doing on it. So that being said, let's get to it. This is sort of like a new section that I'm going to be implementing in the channel. It's called Red Pill Media. Now, I'm going to be talking about books, music, movies, what have you, that I think are, quite frankly, red pilled as fuck, okay? That's the goal of this little feature on the channel. It's to introduce you to stuff that you might have heard, might have never heard of, but that you have to look at real careful. Right? In the future, I'm going to be talking about Russia's 2112. I'm going to be talking about Empire Strikes Back. I'm going to be talking about J.D. Unwin's Sex and Culture. I'm going to be talking about different books, different media, and how you can get real lessons out of this media if you know what to look for. Because a lot of times, like for instance, with Empire Strikes Back, which I'll be talking about in a couple of weeks, you look at it and you're like, oh, it's the best of the Star Wars movies. No. It is one of the most masculine movies ever made, and I'll show you when I get around to talking about it. But in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the granddaddy of all red pill books, and that is The Godfather. Now, The Godfather was a book written by Mario Puzo, and it was turned into a movie, one of the best movies ever made, by Francis Ford Coppola. Francis Ford Coppola would follow up The Godfather in 1972. He'd follow it up with The Conversation, a movie that, pushing 50 years after it was made, is more relevant than ever insofar as technology and privacy are concerned. And then he followed that movie up with The Godfather Part 2, which transcended cinema and went into the realms of grand Shakespearean theater, if you will. The Godfather Part 2 is quite likely the greatest picture ever made. And then he went on and filmed one of the most incredible war movies ever made, which is Apocalypse Now. Francis Coppola, lucky bastard, he had a role. 4 movies in a row that were unbelievably good. But it all started with The Godfather, and The Godfather started with a book written by Mario Puzo. Mario Puzo wrote this book in, I guess, 68 or something like that. It was published in 1969, I believe. Now, The Godfather is a pulp novel raised to epic proportions. Because you see, Mario Puzo was a journeyman writer, journeyman novelist. He started out as a serious novelist, but then he'd just gone for the money. And there's nothing wrong with that, He had family commitments, children, the whole thing, and he decided that it was in their best interest for him to forego his career as a serious writer and move in a pulpier direction. There's nothing wrong with providing for your family, and there's nothing wrong with deciding coldly and rationally to take a career path that might not garner that much artistic respect, if you will, but will provide for your children. That's perfectly fine. But the funny thing is that by foregoing his career as a serious novelist, Mario Puzo actually created one of the great pieces of literature. Because it really is. Because you could look at it and criticize it and say, well, it's not Henry James insofar as it's writing. No, you're absolutely right. But not only does it get the job done, it gets the job done with style and energy. I mean, the novel fairly gallops along. It's just a lot of fun. Now, the difference between the book and the movie are substantial. You're not going to learn what I want to tell you about here by watching the movie. You have to read the novel. Because you see, in the movie, Francis Coppola, brilliant director though he is, could not capture the backstories of all the characters described in the novel The Godfather. But of course, Mario Puzo had all the room in the world, as it were. And he fills the novel with different people, different characters, but they are all men. Because Mario Puzo, as a novelist, didn't really care about women. For him, they were decoration, you know, and many times an obstacle to be overcome, even. Huh. Mm-hmm. Now, in The Godfather, insofar as all the main characters, you see, the story is very simple. And it's, in fact, a story that he lifted right out of Dostoevsky, Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov. Both novels, Brothers Karamazov and The Godfather, revolve around a patriarch and his 4 sons. One of his sons is a hothead. One of his sons is a cold, rational intellectual. One of his sons is a sweet boy. And the 4th one is sort of like a stepson, half-son, foundling kind of thing. The character of Smerdyakov and Tom Hagen. Now, let me go through the characters so that you understand what we're talking about. You have, of course, Don Vito Corleone, the Godfather. A very powerful man, very much loved. Then you have his sons, in order. There was Sonny, who was the hothead. Fredo, who was the sweet boy. Michael, the cold rationalist. And the stepson was Tom Hagen, the consigliere. Now, around these 5 men, there are all of these other characters. And what's fascinating about what Mario Puzo does is that, see, he describes the relationships between these men and how they came to be at the places that they were. For instance, one of the most memorable stories in The Godfather is the story of Luca Brasi. Now, Luca Brasi was essentially the hitman who worked for Don Vito. He was this incredible bull of a man, incredibly violent, and completely and utterly loyal to Don Vito. Now, see, the novel explains how this relationship between the 2 men happened. And in point of fact, this relationship between the 2 men is mirrored in a relationship that Michael, the youngest son, the cold intellectual who will eventually take over the Godfather's empire, it explains how Michael forged the same relationship with, his name slips my mind, but it doesn't really matter. You see, the novel explains how men relate to one another and how bonds of loyalty are forged. And you see, the novel looks at men as they actually are and understands something that not many writers understand. You see, many writers think that conflicts between men, everybody wants to be the alpha, wants to be the top dog. But The Godfather, Mario Puzo, and the way he writes about it, he understands that, you see, just as much as leading, many men want to follow. Many men want to be a part of the team, as it were. and they will do anything to remain a member of the team, of the family, in the language of The Godfather, the novel. Because you know, the family, the Corleone family, with all the gangsters and hitmen and all the rest of it, you know, they all want to be a part of a team. They all want to be together. They all want to feel indisputable love and affection and respect from one another so that they can all together move forward in their enterprise. Now, of course, in this case, the enterprise is criminal, right? But you see, even though it's about criminals, the basic human nature of the characters is real. It's true. Mario Puzo is just as sophisticated as Dostoevsky in his psychology. He is just as astute in his observations of the various characters. Now, famously, the novel, The Godfather, a lot of the secondary characters are based on famous people. For instance, the character of Johnny Fontane, the singer in the novel, is based, of course, on Frank Sinatra, who was rumored for years to have had different relationships with famous mafiosi. Right? Now, the novel, you know, captures that. It captures, you know, that feeling that it's a roman à clef. But the novel does a lot with the material. It doesn't just say, oh, this character is supposed to be Frank Sinatra. No, no, no. It takes that character and develops him and shows him in a very human way and explains things about human nature, about men, that no serious novel would touch, so-called serious novel, because the literature that's being published today is garbage. It doesn't understand people. It has these fake figures that are not real. They're not talking about people. The Godfather talks about people. That's why it's a great novel, because it talks about people and explains how people really are. You see, like for instance, Johnny Fontane, it's talking a trivial incident in the novel. It talks about how Johnny Fontane and his wife separated, and he did not begrudge his ex-wife you know, having other boyfriends. But he, in the novel, describes how he made certain conditions so that his ex-wife would never remarry, that it would always be to her advantage to never remarry, not because he wanted to control her sexuality, but because he wanted to safeguard his paternal relationship with his daughters. You see? Which is very male and very true. Because we don't begrudge ex-girlfriends who want to, you know, have sex and be with other men. Of course not. Or ex-wives, as the case may be. But we are extremely jealous of our paternal relationship with our own children. We don't want some interloper cutting in, as it were, insofar as our relationship with our children. And see, those little touches are throughout the novel. And you have to read them with that focus. Now that, for instance, that incredible insight, it's just a few throwaway lines in the novel, but it captures something essential about men. Something essential about men that other novels don't really want to touch upon. You see, the serious novels, they don't want to touch about this. They don't want to touch on this. They don't want to describe these issues. First of all, because most of the people who are choosing novels at the big presses today are women, okay? And so those women, they shy away from a masculine book like Godfather. The Godfather would never have been published today. No way. No way would it have been published. Or it might have been published because it is a violent, pulpy novel that has a lot of great scenes that Francis Coppola famously turned into just exceptional cinema. Yeah? But the novel, in and of itself, those human touches, those little throwaway lines, those little descriptions about how men behave with one another, it's fascinating. The relationship between Michael and Apollonia, his first wife, the woman he fell in love with in Sicily, the woman that struck him with a thunderbolt, as they called it, you know, and his relationship, and the discussion of the value of virginity, and why virginity was such an important facet of his relationship with her. It's fascinating. You know, it's fascinating and it's real. It's about men. Okay? It's about men, and it understands male psychology. Now, if you feel that you're shying away from some elements, apart from the violence and the criminality, but some of the psychological aspects of what Mario Puzo describes insofar as men is concerned, if you find yourself shying away from that material, you should question yourself. Because The Godfather is, in a very real sense, a guidepost as to how to be a man. And much of it is quite nasty and brutish, as it were. Very, very much so. But you see, that's the thing, because being a man is not pretty. Being a man is tough and dirty and often read the book. Hi there. I hope you do read The Godfather, and if you decide to buy it, please click on the affiliate link below and really enjoy it, because it's a great book and a great novel. And once again, I want to thank my subscribers for supporting me, and man, I just feel terrific. Thank you to each and every one of you. Talk to you soon.